I want you to imagine something. You spend 4 years earning one assignment. Not 4 years of showing up and collecting a paycheck. 4 years of 4 a.m. wake-ups. 4 years of physical tests that left you unable to walk the next morning. 4 years of qualifications, certifications, evaluations. Each one a small door you had to push through alone, while everyone else around you went home to their families. 4 years of being told, not yet, not quite, almost. And then, finally, almost becomes yes. My name is Captain Sarah Novak. I served 9 years in the United States Army. And I want to tell you about the morning that the 4 most important years of my career were handed to someone else. Without my knowledge, without my consent, and without a single word of warning. The assignment was a forward intelligence support role, classified, overseas, the kind of position that doesn't appear on job boards and isn't discussed at dinner tables. The kind of position you don't apply for. You earn your way onto the consideration list through years of performance reviews, physical readiness scores, and the quiet, consistent reputation you build one mission at a time. I'd been on that consideration list for 14 months. I knew my file was strong. I knew my evaluations were clean. I knew that my brigade commander had personally recommended me, because he had told me so, quietly, after a late debrief in November. Keep doing what you're doing, Captain Novak. Don't let up. I didn't let up. Not for a single day. His name was Captain Derek Holloway. We had come through the same officer training class. We had been stationed at the same base for 3 years. In that time, I had believed, genuinely believed, that we were colleagues. Maybe even something close to friends. We had covered each other's watch rotations, shared field rations on overnight exercises. Once, during a training exercise that went badly wrong in the rain, he had been the one standing next to me when my knee gave out on a ridge, and he had helped me back down without making me feel weak for needing it. I trusted him the way you trust someone who has stood beside you in mud and cold and exhaustion, which is the most dangerous kind of trust there is. Because Derek Holloway had spent the last 6 weeks doing something I would not discover until it was almost too late. On the morning the deployment assignments were announced, I walked into that briefing room with the quiet confidence of a woman who had done everything right. I sat down. I folded my hands on the table. I listened as Colonel Richards read the list. He read 12 names. Mine was not one of them. Derek Holloway's was. I did not move. I did not speak. I sat completely still while the room continued around me. Soldiers nodding, papers shuffling, someone making a joke near the back. I sat there and felt the floor disappear beneath my feet in slow motion. And then I went back to my office. I closed the door. I sat down at my desk, and I started looking. Here is what I knew about Derek Holloway that nobody else seemed to notice. He was good at appearing excellent without actually being excellent. He knew how to walk into a room and fill it. He knew how to speak in briefings, confidently, smoothly, with just enough technical language to sound authoritative. He had mastered the performance of competence in a way that was genuinely impressive. But his file? His file told a different story to anyone willing to read between the lines. His physical readiness scores had slipped twice in 18 months. His last 2 peer evaluations contained the kind of carefully worded phrases that senior officers use when they want to flag a concern without creating a paper trail. And most importantly, he had never, in 3 years at this base, been on any consideration list for a forward intelligence role. Until now. I submitted a request for a copy of my own personnel file. Standard administrative rights, nothing unusual. The processing time was 72 hours. I told no one I had requested it. I kept showing up, kept performing, kept my face absolutely clean of everything churning underneath. On the third day, the file arrived. I read it once, quickly. Then I read it again, slowly. Buried inside my qualification records, in a section that most soldiers never review because it rarely changes, was a flag. A small administrative notation marking a discrepancy in one of my training completion dates. A minor clerical irregularity. The kind of thing that, on its own, means nothing. The kind of thing that, if reported to the right person at the right moment, could quietly disqualify a candidate from a sensitive assignment without anyone asking too many questions. Someone had found it. Someone had reported it. Someone who had borrowed my training binder 6 weeks earlier, just before the consideration window opened, telling me he needed to study the qualification format for his own application. I sat with that knowledge for a long time. Not from indecision, from precision. Because I had learned in 9 years of service that the difference between justice and noise is evidence. And I did not yet have enough of it. Over the next 2 weeks, I worked in silence. I requested the access log for my personnel file. I cross-referenced the timestamp of the flag against Derek's schedule, his base access records, his terminal login history. A casual question I asked the administrative coordinator about recent file activity without explaining why I was asking. Everything pointed to the same place. And then I found the email. A message sent from a personal account, not his military address, which told me he had been careful. Sent to a civilian administrative contractor 3 days before the consideration window closed. Politely worded, professionally structured, mentioning a concern about a colleague's training records and suggesting it might be worth reviewing before final decisions were made. I printed it. I printed the access logs. I printed the timestamp records. I organized everything into a single folder with the quiet, methodical focus of a soldier who has spent years learning that preparation is the only weapon that never misfires. And then I made an appointment. Not with internal affairs, not with the base legal office, with Brigadier General Marion Hayes, a woman who had 31 years of service, a woman who had personally overseen 3 Inspector General investigations in her career, a woman who, I knew from reputation, had a particular intolerance for soldiers who weaponized military bureaucracy against their own people. I walked into her office at 0800 on a Wednesday morning. I placed the folder on her desk. I said, "General, I need you to look at this, and I need you to tell me if I'm reading it wrong, because I genuinely hope I am." She opened it. She read. The room was so quiet I could hear the ventilation system in the ceiling. She did not look up for a very long time. When General Hayes finally looked up from that folder, her expression was not what I expected. I had expected anger, maybe even discomfort, the reluctance of a senior officer being handed a problem she had not asked for on a Wednesday morning. What I saw instead was something far quieter. Recognition. The kind a commander gives a soldier who just placed something true and important in her hands. She said, "You documented all of this yourself?" "Yes, ma'am." "Over how long?" 14 days. She looked at the folder again. Then she picked up her phone. The investigation took 9 days. 9 days during which Derek Holloway continued walking the base like a man who had gotten away with something clean. 9 days of him nodding at me in corridors, speaking confidently in briefings, carrying himself with the easy posture of someone who had already moved on. He had no idea what was already in motion. On the 10th day, he was called into General Hayes's office. I was not there. I did not need to be. What I know is this. Derek Holloway was removed from the deployment roster that afternoon. His security clearance was placed under review pending a formal investigation into personnel file misconduct and conduct unbecoming an officer. Within 3 weeks, he received a formal letter of reprimand, the kind that does not disappear, the kind that follows an officer's file like a shadow for the rest of their career. The deployment was reassigned to me. I remember standing in the staging area on the morning we shipped out. Cold air, the smell of aviation fuel, and early light pushing through the hangar doors. My unit moving around me with the focused energy of soldiers who know exactly what they are walking toward. And I remember feeling not triumph, not the hot, satisfying rush of victory that movies promise you when justice finally arrives. What I felt was stillness. The particular stillness of a woman who has carried something heavy for a long time and has finally been allowed to set it down. Derek Holloway had made a calculation about me. He had decided that because I was composed, I was passive. That because I trusted him, I was blind. That because I had never fought loudly, I did not know how to fight at all. He was wrong on every count. And here is what I want you to understand. Because I did not tell you this story to celebrate what happened to him. I told you this story because of what almost happened to me. Because I almost accepted it. I almost sat in that silent office and told myself that the system was too large, too complicated, too indifferent to care about one woman's 4 years of work. And the only thing that stopped me from accepting it was the simple, stubborn decision to look closer. If someone is standing between you and something you have genuinely earned, do not fight loud. Do not break. Do not give them the satisfaction of watching you unravel. Look closer.
Document everything. Ask the quiet questions. Build the folder that cannot be argued with. Because the truth, when it is organized, patient, and placed in the right hands, is the most powerful weapon you will ever carry into any room.